The soft hum of the city below reached me through the wide glass window as I sipped my morning coffee, the porcelain warm against my palms. My silk blouse felt impossibly smooth, almost luxurious, and I couldn't help but notice the tiny chip in my nail polish, a detail that somehow anchored me to reality despite the calm perfection of my apartment. Life looked effortless from this view, but only I knew the cost behind it. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my sister, Chloe. Mom and Dad want a video call tonight. Big surprise. My chest tightened, a mix of irritation and something I couldn't quite name. The word surprise always had this way of bringing back memories I'd rather forget. Memories of favoritisms, of doors closed with a polite smile, and an eye roll I thought they'd never see. I scrolled through emails, ignoring the message, letting the aroma of roasted coffee beans fill the kitchen. But I couldn't shake it. The message brought it all back. The way my parents had cheered for Chloe when she got that $100,000 for her amazing business idea, while I got a glossy book titled How to Become a Millionaire. A wry smile tugged at my lips. Life has a way of balancing scales, doesn't it? And tonight, I thought I would see exactly how uneven ours had been until now. I remember the day like it was yesterday, though it happened over a decade ago. I was 18, freshly graduated from high school, my future hanging in the balance, like fragile glass. I had spent months pitching my ideas to my parents, sketching business plans on sheets of crumpled paper, and staying up late researching markets and strategies. I thought I was ready, determined, even confident. Then Chloe waltzed into the room with her usual charm, flashing a grin that always seemed to work magic on them. Mom, Dad, I have an amazing business idea. All I need is a little help to get started. And just like that, they were smitten. That $100,000 check appeared on the kitchen counter as if by miracle, their eyes sparkling with pride. I stood frozen, my heart pounding, my hands trembling. But I've been working on my plan for months, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My throat felt tight, and a lump formed that I couldn't swallow away. Sweetheart, you have that book, right? How to Become a Millionaire. It'll guide you, my mother said, smiling as though she'd given me a treasure. A treasure. I held the book in my hands later that night, its glossy cover mocking me silently. It wasn't a check. It wasn't real faith. It was a suggestion, a polite way of saying, good luck, figure out yourself. I remember retreating to my room, clutching that book against my chest. My grandmother had once told me, Samantha, sometimes the hand they don't extend is the one that pushes you to reach higher than you ever imagined. I remembered her words, her soft, worn hands resting on mine, and a flicker of resolve sparked inside me. I made a choice then. I wouldn't beg for attention. I wouldn't compete for approval. I would take the book, take my ideas, and build something that would prove, not to them but to myself, that I was capable of more than their comparisons or their expectations. I started small, working late nights in the cramped apartment I'd rented after college, my laptop balanced precariously on my knees, the city lights flickering through the window. The book my parents had given me sat on the shelf like a silent, ironic mentor. Each chapter one read, each strategy one tried, felt like a small rebellion against their assumptions. I wasn't going to wait for handouts. I was going to create my own path. It wasn't easy. I stumbled countless times, doubted my own abilities, and sometimes cried when bills piled up faster than clients. But that's when I met Claire Benson, a seasoned entrepreneur who saw something in me that I had barely dared to admit existed. Claire became my mentor, guiding me through the labyrinth of contracts, marketing, and self-confidence. She didn't give me money, but she gave me something far more valuable, belief. The first few wins were tiny, a small client who paid on time, a local event that brought exposure, but each one felt monumental. I celebrated quietly, savoring my progress alone in my apartment with takeout and an overbrewed cup of coffee. There was a strange thrill in keeping it hidden, like holding a secret that could shock the world one day. Months turned into years. I learned to negotiate, to market my skills, to build a brand. My first profitable project was a consulting deal with a boutique firm, and I remember the rush when I transferred the first check into my account, the numbers looking so different from the $100,000 my sister had received. But this success felt earned, a product of late nights, mistakes, and relentless persistence. By the time I hit my late 20s, I had built a portfolio that would impress anyone, but only a few close friends knew the full extent. On social media, I posted modest updates, never showing the sleek office I had finally rented, the clients I had acquired, or the team I was leading. My family thought I was still figuring things out, still clinging to the ideas in that book. And in some ways, I liked it that way. Their assumptions made the eventual reveal all the sweeter. Each morning, I glanced at the book, now worn at the edges, and smiled. It had been the push I needed, the nudge that ignited the fire in me. What had started as a polite dismissal had transformed into the foundation of my independence. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving, quietly, deliberately, and on my own terms. The knock at my office door was gentle, polite, but I knew instantly who it was. Chloe. And behind her, the familiar smiles of Mom and Dad, a mix of excitement and expectation plastered across their faces. They had come thinking they were walking into a scene of struggle, imagining me still finding my way, as I had years ago. I stood, straightening my blazer, letting the soft sunlight catch the subtle shimmer of the silk threads. The office was everything I had built, sleek, elegant, yet personal. Modern art adorned the walls, each piece carefully chosen, each color reflecting a moment of my journey. My desk was minimalist, save for a small stack of notebooks, a few framed photos, and the worn copy of How to Become a Millionaire, now more symbol than guide. They paused in the doorway, taking in the space, their expressions shifting from casual curiosity to something else, something slower, heavier. "Samantha," my mother began, her voice uncertain, almost cautious. I gestured for them to sit. "Please," I said, my tone calm but firm. "I think it's time I show you what I've been working on." As they settled into the chairs, I gave them a tour, not the generic tour of a fancy office, but the real one. My awards, my client contracts, my team's photos, and the financial reports displayed with subtle pride. I could see Chloe's confident smile faltering as she realized this wasn't a small operation or a side hustle. Finally, I leaned against my desk, folding my hands, and let the silence stretch just long enough for anticipation to build. When you gave Chloe $100,000 for her business and handed me a book, I knew I had to find my own way. That book, I held it up, letting them see the corners frayed with use, became my roadmap. Not because it was easy, but because I decided to make it work. I clicked a button on my laptop. The screen lit up with my company's current projects, my net worth, and the contracts I held in my name. Numbers that would make their jaws drop. Their faces reflected every emotion: shock, disbelief, a flicker of guilt, and finally, awe. Chloe's voice wavered. I didn't realize." "You didn't," I replied softly yet firmly. "And that's okay. But now you see. I am not struggling. I am not behind. And I did it without the safety net you were given." Mom's eyes filled with tears. Dad's hands shook slightly. I could feel the weight of years of comparisons, doubts, and unspoken judgments finally shifting. I didn't need to say more. The truth was undeniable, and for the first time, they truly saw me. Not the younger, overlooked daughter, but the woman I had worked tirelessly to become. I watched them sit there, stunned, absorbing every detail, their eyes flicking from the numbers on the screen to the office that spoke volumes about the life I'd built. The room was quiet, heavy with realization, and I knew this was the moment where everything shifted. "I want to be clear," I began, my voice calm but commanding. "I'm willing to help, but not without conditions. This isn't about revenge. It's about accountability, growth, and respect. If we are going to move forward as a family, some things must change." Chloe's shoulders tensed, but I continued. "Chloe, you've been given opportunities, but you need direction. If you want my guidance, you'll need to commit to a plan that challenges you to take responsibility for your own success, not just rely on handouts. I will support you, but only when I see effort, focus, and consistency." My mother's eyes filled again, but I didn't soften. Mom, Dad, you need to let go of favoritism and comparisons. Your love must be unconditional, and that means acknowledging everyone's efforts equally. You can't fix the past, but you can change the way you parent moving forward. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in, then addressed all of them together. I care about this family. I want us to thrive, but I will not be pulled into old patterns. Respect, honesty, and independence are non-negotiable. I am proud of what I've built, but I am also willing to lift you up if, and only if, you meet me halfway. Chloe nodded slowly, a mix of shame and determination crossing her face. I understand, she whispered. I leaned back, feeling a sense of balance finally settle in the room. This isn't punishment, I said. It's structure. It's accountability. And it's the way forward. I could see the subtle shift already. My parents, normally so certain in their judgments, now considering my words seriously. Chloe, usually impatient, now seemed reflective. For the first time, I felt a genuine sense of empowerment, not just for myself, but for the people I loved who were finally learning the weight of actions and the power of growth. I picked up the worn copy of How to Become a Millionaire from my desk, holding it up like a silent reminder. This book didn't make me rich, I said softly, letting a hint of a smile curve my lips. I did. And I expect the same from you. Not miracles, but commitment, courage, and integrity. That's how we move forward. The room was still, but it was no longer heavy with past disappointments. It was charged with possibility, a tension that hinted at transformation. And in that charged silence, I felt the true meaning of power, not dominance, but clarity, choice, and the courage to set the terms of my own life. Weeks passed after that conversation, and slowly, I watched the changes unfold. Chloe enrolled in a small business course, tackling projects with a seriousness I had never seen before. Mom started volunteering at a local nonprofit, channeling her energy into something meaningful rather than comparing her children. Dad began mentoring young entrepreneurs, learning humility in ways he hadn't imagined. Each step wasn't perfect, but it was progress, and that was enough. I often found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The hurt, the feelings of being overlooked, the quiet nights of self-doubt, they had shaped me as much as my victories. Every late night in that tiny apartment, every small triumph, every mistake had led me to this moment, a life built on my own terms, filled with independence, dignity, and purpose. The worn book sat on my desk, a silent companion through it all. I held it one evening, tracing the creases in the cover, and realized it was more than advice. It had been a challenge, a mirror, a spark. It reminded me that opportunity often comes wrapped in humility and effort, not in checks handed over with a smile. Sitting in my office, sunlight streaming through the window, I felt a calm satisfaction. The city below was alive, vibrant, indifferent to my small victories, yet I knew I had carved out a space that was uniquely mine. My parents and sister were learning, growing, and I could finally feel pride without bitterness. I smiled softly, thinking of my grandmother's words from years ago. Sometimes the hand they don't extend is the one that pushes you to reach higher than you ever imagined. That hand, invisible then, had guided me. I had reached higher. I had become more. And now, as I closed the book and looked out over the skyline, I whispered to myself, the words rolling naturally in my own voice, smooth and certain. I didn't just follow a path, they made me carve my own. And this is only the beginning.